Hello everyone and welcome to this episode of Horse Review. Today I will be discussing the American Quarter Horse. When pulling up the grid, you can see that the Quarter Horse actually fits pretty well inside of it. It is ever so slightly taller than it is long, but not dramatically so. However, when looking at the relative proportions of the shoulder, barrel, and haunches, you can see that they are not even. The shoulder only takes up about 1 square, whereas the haunches and barrel take up about 2 squares each. I'm not surprised that the haunches are larger, considering that this is a common trait of real quarter horses. However, the shoulder should not be so proportionately small. It's a little hard to tell with the white markings on this model, but the front cannon bones do look to be a little bit too long. The neck may look a little bit long, but this is simply because of the way it's positioned. The head is also a little bit small, but this is true to the breed in real life. Let's take a look at the gaits. The quarter horse's walk is quite long, with the head and neck stretched out far in front of it. They gave it a surprising amount of knee action for a stock horse. This is probably to help compensate for the fact that the leg is so far back on the shoulder, therefore it doesn't stretch forward very much. The horse is tracking up though, which is a bonus. In the slow motion footage, you can see that the shoulder really swings forward. Unfortunately, due to the placement of the upper front leg, it does not follow the shoulder very well. The hind pasterns also look a little bit odd, and they're not flexing near the bottom. Like with the walk, the trot is meant to imitate a pleasure-type horse. The horse is not quite tracking up, but it's close. There's also a considerable amount of knee action. Once again, you can see that the hind pasterns aren't positioned quite right when the foot comes up. The downhill build of the quarter horse model is really evident here. However, this isn't necessarily unrealistic for the breed. The shoulder also has a considerable amount of movement, too much even. It almost appears as though the shoulder is completely detaching from the horse and moving independently. This sort of makes it look like the horse has a double shoulder. The canter is small but tidy. The front leg reaches well for the size of the canter, and the other legs follow it nicely. The hindquarters are moving well, and the shoulder is much less exaggerated than at trot. I would still like to see some more flexing in the hind pasterns, though. If you look closely at the front right leg, you can also see that the fetlock comes down quite far. This isn't necessarily unrealistic for being at the canter, but considering that none of the other legs are doing it, this horse might have suspensory issues. The hand gallop is much the same as the canter, though the front leg doesn't reach forward quite as well. The upper hind legs also suck into the horse a little bit. Fortunately, the issue with the shoulder that could be seen at the trot does not seem to be a problem here. In fact, the shoulder is actually moving quite nicely. It's hard to see what's going on at the gallop at full speed, so we'll slow it down. The horse is reaching in front of it well, though it's still limited by the placement of the upper front leg. The hind legs aren't completely following through with the motion, making them appear to come up short and underneath the horse. The front left leg also looks to be lagging a little bit and isn't reaching very well. The rear is quite nice, with the horse balancing itself as it comes up, stays up, and comes back down. The striking is a nice touch, but if you look closely, you can see that the legs sort of clip into themselves when they come back towards the horse. The slide and stop is quite nice, and I find it to be a realistic representation of this movement. They even added the detail of the horse almost pawing with its front legs in the stop. In addition, the transition from the slide and stop back to the standing position is quite smooth. The quarter horse also has a special move, the spin, which we'll look at next. You can see that the horse plants its hind right hoof in the ground and hardly moves it at all. This is realistic for this movement in real life. The positioning of the lower front legs at some parts is a little bit sloppy, but given the complexity of this maneuver, I'm impressed that Star Stable pulled it off so well. When it comes to jumping, you can tell that this isn't the quarter horse's specialty. In the canter jump, the front legs tuck up and underneath the horse nicely, but the hind legs stick out pretty far behind the horse. However, the landing and transition back into the gait is decent. The jump from the hand gallop is much the same as at the canter, but if you watch closely, you can see that the horse throws its head into the air during the crest of the jump. This in turn hollows out the back, making the jump quite unattractive. The jump from the full gallop is about the same as the canter. At this gait, the horse doesn't poke its nose into the air like it did at the hand gallop. The horse's front right leg fumbles a little bit as it lands, but overall, it's not terrible. The American Quarter Horse was quite popular when it first came out, and to this day, it is still one of the more popular horse models in game. However, that does not mean it's without its issues. On the gaits and jumps alone, I would give this horse a score of poor. However, the slide and stop and the spin, in addition to the horse fitting within a square nicely and having a lot of attention to detail on what real quarter horses look like, would bump this up to a score of acceptable. Thank you for watching, and if there are any breeds that you'd like to see next, please let me know in the comments.